can foreigners legally invest in property, purchase, build, buy here in Bali? Over to you.
Okay. The thing is, the answer is yes, definitely, it is possible.
Yes.
And it has been done pretty well since a few years, and that's why actually Bali has so many actually foreign investments that's really coming here. But of course, there are ways to follow to invest in Bali. You do not invest in just like a cowboy, let's say, in Bali. It's done pretty well legally, so you have two types of investments possible. So you have the leasehold.
Yes.
And you have also what you call the purchase, but we need to define what is a purchase.
Right.
Because it can only be done through a certain company, a legal entity in Indonesia called a PTPMA.
Okay, got it. So just to clarify, right? You can either do a leasehold or you can purchase outright, which is also known as a freehold, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of people, you know, mostly hear about the freehold side of things. And as we know, it is not really practiced or not really always recommended. So tell me a little bit about that, because a lot of people know about that, and so they think that, you know, because we've discussed previously that freehold is not really legal here. You can't really purchase outrightly as a foreigner. How do people then purchase outrightly here in Bali?
Okay, so foreigners cannot own the land in Indonesia.
Right.
So under their name, they cannot purchase the land in Bali, right? However, if you establish a legal entity in Indonesia called a PTPMA, it's a foreign-owned investment company. This legal entity, which is an Indonesian legal entity, can buy the land, the property.
Okay, got it, got it.
But it is 100% owned by the foreigners.
Okay.
So the land is still under the Indonesian, you could say, like entity and government.
Okay, got it. So as a foreigner, I will then establish an Indonesian-based company, and through that company, I would then purchase the land and build on that land.
Exactly, a foreign-owned company. But under your name, if you want to buy just this nice, beautiful rice field that you have in front of you, it is not possible. You cannot do that.
And I actually like that, to be honest. I think that a lot of countries around the world could actually benefit from adopting these type of practices. I know for foreigners it's kind of like, oh shit, like, you know, I don't want to have to do the leasehold, and the freehold is a bit complicated, but this law is really in place to protect Indonesians, right? And to protect the locals from foreigners buying up all their land, right?
Exactly. So actually the leasehold is pretty common here. It still allows the locals actually to own their lands.
Right.
But you kind of, you know, lend it for a few years, their land, and every, like say, 20, 30 years, you're going to extend actually this authorization to own the land and the property.
Yeah, I like that idea, and I see a lot of people. It also ends up being a lot more affordable as well. So if you actually lease a property, let's say 25 years or 30 years, it's a lot more affordable than if you are doing a freehold and you're purchasing outright.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
So, you know, with experience, we cannot really see everything like this, but with experience, the freehold is like 2 to 3 times more expensive than the leasehold.
Right.
So a lot of people ask me, okay, should I buy a leasehold or freehold? First of all, do you have the budget for that?
Right.
If you want that's the first question you have to say.
Exactly, yeah.
And the second thing is actually the leasehold is really, really done for the foreigners. So it's really well protected, and everything is under the name, your name, and you can go through the notary, so everything is pretty well done.
Right. I mean, leasehold option is really great if you're a foreigner looking to invest here in Bali, and this is what I would, you know, generally recommend. You know, freehold gets a little bit more complicated, and you want to think about how committed are you here in Bali, right? Do you want to go ahead and create that company, and then do you want to have to go ahead and then, you know, purchase the land under your company name? So there's a lot of technicalities that come in, whereas a leasehold, you are securing that piece of land and you are building in your own name. So at any point in time, if you need to go to court or if there's anything that arises, you and your investment is protected under the law. And so that's really great. I know a lot of people wanted us to clear that up. And so long story short, there's options available. Now tell me a little bit more about how many years people typically can secure or lease land for.
It's really depend actually of the investors.
Right.
That's the truth. You can go like from 1 year to actually 8 years. But
Right.
how does it work? It's first of all, you have 30 years.
Right.
You can have a lease of 30 years, and then you can extend it 25 years,
Right.
2 times.
Okay, got it. Okay, so I can say, I can do, let's say 25 years or 30 years now, and then I can also extend 2 times over.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
As long as the owners
Okay.
of course, the land is agree with that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And how do you ensure that an owner is actually okay with you extending? Because what if I build a property and, you know, it's 25 years is almost up, and then they say, hey, you can't extend. How does that work?
So that's the trick. So
Right.
when you buy a property in Bali, you always have to think already about the extension.
Right.
So the way that you're gonna structure it in the contract is, okay, I'm gonna lease your land for let's
Right.
say 30 years.
Right.
But I would like to have already the authorization
Right.
to extend it in the future for another, let's say, 25 years.
Right.
And then you agree with the owner with the price. So it's pretty
Okay.
simple the way that you do it.
So in that contract that you're signing when you are securing or purchasing that land, you stipulate in the contract that you are going to be extending, and he is outrightly, you know, initially agreeing to extend. So by the time that the extension comes around, he's already agreed to that, correct?
Exactly. So you
Okay.
have absolutely no surprise at the end of the
Right.
contract, and you know what's gonna happen.
Right.
If you want to resell on it, no problem, because then the next investor will just inherit it. Will just have your extension.
Okay, so that's another thing, and another question that people have is, can you, you know, after you've leased the land and you've built your property, can you then go ahead and sell that? If you, let's say you decide Bali's not for me, I want to sell my property. How does that then work?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So let's say you have let's say same example, 30 years. You use it, you lease it, you use your property for 3 years. So you
Okay.
have 27 years left on your
Right.
property. So you're gonna sell 27 years
Right.
for the next one, for the next person. But in this contract, if you already pre-negotiated the extension,
Right.
the next investors can just like buy also the extension,
Right.
either pay the extension upfront or just wait, as in the contract it is stipulated, the
Yeah.
timing to pay the extension.
Okay, got it. So it's legally allowed. If I secure land and I lease it for, let's say, 30 years, I can then go ahead and sell at any time.
Anytime.
Okay, got it. So there you have it, guys. You can invest in Bali and then sell it. And a lot of people actually make money from this, where they will purchase land, they will build, and then they sell it off. And that's how some investors do it. So
Yeah.
you can either sell it or you can keep the property and rent it out nightly, and so on. And let's talk a little bit about that.
Can I add just one
Of
point?
course.
Actually, the thing is, a lot of people think, oh gosh, you know, it's really difficult because we don't, for the leasehold, you know, we really want to own it forever. But the
Right.
thing is, in Bali, a lot of people buy and sell. So what happened for most of the investors, they invest in Bali, in villas for, let's say,
Right.
4 or 5 years, and then they resell it.
Okay.
So they never really go through the end of the lease
Right.
for most of the people.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you know, it's this is how the market works. So
Right.
the next person just come and take over your lease and their contract, and there's no issue with that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing, of course, is you want to have a good lawyer. You want to make sure that those contracts are airtight.
Yeah,
You want to ensure that there's a clause in that contract that says that you can extend, and that the landowner is already legally agreeing to that extension, so that you can rest assured that you can extend at the end. And a lot of people actually, and you know, what's common as well is you can purchase that extension if you want to pay for that extension up front as well when you're
Exactly.
purchasing the first land. So you can do 50 years up front, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
If the owners agree to that.
Agree to that, of
Yeah.
course. All right, so my next question for you is, if I'm a foreigner and I'm coming into Bali, what are the permits, if any, that I need to purchase a property here in Bali, Indonesia? Tell me about that.
So you do not need any permit to invest in Bali.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple. However, what you need to have is what you need to make sure is, if you buy an already built villa in Bali, you need to make sure that you have what we call building permits, which
Okay.
is, before the name was called IMB, and now it's moved to PGB. So
PGB.
PGB, yeah.
Okay,
but the
got it.
regulation is changing. But for now, this is what you will need to invest in Bali.
So the first thing that you should be looking for if someone says, hey, I want to sell you my property is, do you have a PGB, or formerly known as an IMB? Correct?
Exactly.
Okay, got
so
it.
now the regulation is changing. So we're gonna know exactly, what exactly is inside the PGB.
Right.
But at the end of the year, maybe not at the end of the year because we're already on December.
Already at the end of the year.
But maybe early next year we
Right.
will have, the all details about this new building permit.
Okay, got it. So main thing that you need is a building permit, which the owner of that property and that land will hand over to you.
Exactly.
Correct.
And that's very important to have.
Okay, got it. And actually, if you don't have that, you can't sell your property, right?
Exactly.
So if I'm building a property here in Indonesia and I don't have my building permit, then I'm not going to be able to sell that property down the line. So if you're building, it's very important initially, before anything happens, that you start to apply for those permits,
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly. So you can buy, of course, a property without building permit.
Right.
But it would not be legal, right?
Right,
So
of course.
that's
So
the
you
thing.
can't do it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why a lot of people, and we spoke about this extensively, and he told me, he gave me a lot of advice about the building permit situation, how to go about that. And your team does a lot of work with the landowners, applications for permits, and so on. And so that's something I actually was able to use his company for. So thank you guys for that. All right, so another question I have for you is, as a foreigner, is there anything else that I need? So we already talked about the building permits. Do I need a visa? Do I need any other documentation to be able to invest here in Bali?
Yeah, and the answer is absolutely not. And the only thing you need is to have the funds, right?
Okay.
That's the trick in Bali.
Okay.
And we see with the pandemic right now, a lot of investors,
Right.
they are investing in Bali without coming here.
Right.
It's really possible, right?
Right, because also prices right now are pretty good, right? And so a lot of people are trying to get in right now before, obviously, things spike up again. So that's why we're seeing that.
Exactly. Well, even for the price, actually, for the villas, that's true. You have a lot of owners that were selling villas.
Right.
But for the land, the price did not decrease.
Oh, wow.
It's even increased. In the beginning of the year,
Right.
we see a really a big spike, in the price, and it's really increasing. It's
Oh,
going
wow.
up.
So land prices are increasing now.
Yes.
But why is that?
Because a lot of people realize that with the pandemic,
Right.
they would like to do the change in life.
Oh,
So
I
you have a
see.
lot of families coming here.
Right.
You have a lot of people selling business. You have a lot of,
Right.
those
And
new
remote
people from
workers.
cryptocurrency coming, and you have things happening because the
Yeah.
quality of Bali, the fundamentals here is really
Right,
there.
right.
So a lot of people come here to really establish. So it's more a market, more residential,
Right.
more high-end now,
Right.
which that this now we see in this trend, but it's really happening.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people now, especially now with COVID, a lot of us are working online, and people are realizing hey, why do I work from my shitty office, in my shitty city and pay crazy amount in rent when I could literally live and wake up to the rice fields every morning or be by the
Exactly.
beach. And so that's crazy that people are now looking to Bali, and so that's causing the land price to go up. Good for the landowners, of course.
Good for the landowners.
But now there's much more of a demand. So that's pretty cool. And then let's talk about the visas as well. So how do the visas work? Do we need anything in terms of visas if I'm a foreigner?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
You do not need anything. However, if you invest through a company, so which
Right.
is called a PTPMA, yes, you will need a visa. So it's
Okay.
called a visa investors,
Okay.
and it allows you, of course, to manage this PTPMA, and this PTPMA, which is I remind a foreign-owned company, will invest in the property. But
Okay,
this
got
is
it.
an Indonesian
Right.
entity.
Okay, so I'm going to, as an investor, a business investor, I'm going to get my business visa or my investment visa, and then I'm going to start my company, and then through my company, I'm then going to purchase the land and
but
build.
this is a company that will give you the business visa.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it, got it. Okay, perfect. So we've talked about that. We're going to move on to the next question. What are some of the best parts of Bali to invest in or to build, buy property in right now? What are the hot ones? Tell me.
Let me ask you back the question. What do you think is the best one?
Okay, well, for me, you guys know I decided to invest here in Canggu, but I know you've advised me about some other parts of Bali, so you tell me now.
Okay. The reality is it all depends of the project.
Oh, so wrong answer for me.
It all depends of the project. But you could say that there are three main areas where people are investing in Bali right now.
Okay.
The really hot spot I'm talking in 2021.
Okay.
So which is Canggu.
Canggu, okay.
And what is around Canggu.
Right.
So I do not enter too much into the details.
Right.
You have Ubud,
okay,
which is the normal area with the yoga and stuff.
Right.
And you have one more here, which is kind of hot now,
right,
which is Uluwatu.
Ah, okay, got it.
Okay, so this is the three
Canggu, Ubud, and Uluwatu are the three hot spots for investment right now.
But of course, not everywhere in Canggu, and not everywhere in Ubud, and not everywhere in Uluwatu.
Right.
So inside those areas, you have really the best spot, which is usually close to the beach, close to the restaurant, with the nice amenities, with the parties going on, the tourism, exactly, yoga, etc.
Right. Okay, yeah. I mean, for me, obviously, I love Canggu. I'm a little bit biased, but I've seen a lot of investment properties pop up in Ubud, close to the Ubud Center. And Uluwatu is amazing as well. You know, it's a little bit far out from Canggu, but that's literally where I'm at every single weekend. The beach is amazing. So I definitely get that. And then we also talked about Pereranan as well, just outside of Canggu. So tell me more about that.
So Pereranan it's a very nice area. It's a new residential area. They wanted to do something a little bit different. So more residential, more high-end, more quiet.
Ah,
so
I see.
This is how it all started. And with the pandemic, this is what we just explained. So a lot of families and people are investing in Bali. And when they invest in Bali, of course, they are looking for sometimes this is family, like a nice new residential area.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
like
the thing I need to precise, because you have two types of investment in Bali. So you have the one for profits. So if you would like to rent your villas, and you have the one which is more residential, if you would like to live here.
So
if you talk about the best area to make profit, this is Canggu, Uluwatu, and Ubud. That's what I said. Before they were like a Seminyak. Before
so Seminyak has kind of fallen off a little bit, because when I initially came to Seminyak, property prices in Seminyak were much higher than they are now in Canggu, which is so crazy. I mean, I remember trying to get a villa in Seminyak, and it was much more expensive. But as we've seen through the pandemic, Canggu has really survived the pandemic, and you see a lot of businesses doing really well. Opportunities are still available, and whereas when you go to Seminyak and Kuta, it's like a dead zone. I mean, there's nothing, and it's really sad. So that's why we're seeing a lot of people now coming to Canggu, investing in Canggu, and I really like Pereranan as well. And the nice thing about Pereranan is it's so accessible from Canggu, you know? There's like shortcuts and all of that stuff.
Exactly. But the new coming area is, as I said, if you think about more like a residential and still close to Canggu and have rice field, etc., you have Babakan. You have Tumbak Bayu, and you have like Pereranan. And you have this new one also, which is not a new one. That was already existing, but it's really hot right now. It's Umalas.
Umalas, okay.
Because it is between Seminyak and Canggu.
Right. Okay, perfect. So there you have it, guys. We've talked a little bit about all the little hot spots here in Bali, and now we're gonna head over and I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions, and these are gonna be quick questions, so quick fire questions.
Please,
and I just want like a couple sentences answer, and let's get into it. So if I come to you and I'm like, hey, I want to invest, what would be the first things that you would advise me to do? Okay,
first things, of course, we will review with you the project that you have. Do you want to invest to have some profit, or do you want to live here? The second thing that's very important, actually. The first thing, actually, when you see the land, you say, wow, it's a nice rice field view, and I like it, something like this, is actually to check whether you can build on this land or not, which is called the zoning, right? So first, you check the zoning, in which zoning you are. Second things, you will check all the certificates to make sure that this land is really owned by the owners and everything it's properly registered under the government. And the third thing is you have to check, and this is where I give you a special tips, whether this land actually will cost you a lot of money or not. So I explain how it is. It's like, for example, you have to do what you call the topography of the land to see the size of the land, but also the soil test. Because when you do the foundation, actually, of this land, in Bali, you have a lot of rice field.
Right.
So the land, the soil is not stable, right? So when you do the foundation, actually, of your villas, depending of your soil, if if you want to touch the good ground, you know, it's going to cost you a lot of money if this ground is really deep into this land. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. So just to reiterate, just so I'm making sure I understand,
maybe
it's a lot of
a little bit,
information. Okay, so first thing I have to do, of course, is decide, am I building or buying as an investment where I'm going to rent it out, right?
Exactly.
Or is this going to be a residential property, right? For me, I've chosen to do a little bit of both where, you know, obviously rent it out a little bit and then live there partially. And I know a lot of people do that, right? Like half vacation rental, half residential.
Exactly.
Right. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing that you mentioned is
the zoning.
Okay, zoning.
Yeah, there is 3 types of zoning in Bali. You have the residential area, you have the tourism area, and you have the green zone. Green zone means you cannot build in this green zone. It means it's for the farmers. So in a residential and tourism area, you can build. Residential is only obviously to invest for the residential, and tourism is actually the area where you can rent on a daily basis.
Okay, got it. So you want to check the zoning, right? And that's going to be super important because if you build in an area that is a green zone, then you're not actually able to get that permit that you're going to need if you want to later sell your property. So it's super important for you to find property that's in a residential area or in a tourist area or otherwise known as yellow zone as well, correct? Okay, got it.
Yeah, so the residential is the yellow zone, tourism area is red zone.
Okay, got it. And then the green zone is reserved for farming purposes. That's where you're going to see all the rice fields and so on.
Agriculture.
Exactly. Like this, okay, and then the third thing that we just talked about is doing a soil test.
And the topography to make sure the land is really the same size as on the certificate of the owner. Right?
Okay.
So you have, that's why, you know, to make it extremely simple, there are steps when you invest in Bali, right? So first you select your land and you make sure that everything is clear, okay? And after that you have special tips where you will check the soil test to make sure you will not pay too much for your foundation because the price of the villa, you know, depends also of the good foundation. Because you know in Bali, a lot of villas, actually the foundation were not good in the past, the way they were building, but now the market is really improving. Right. So you need to make sure that you will not spend too much money actually on this one. And after that, you need to make sure, of course, of simple steps. We talk about land, but architecture, making sure you do not do savings on architecture. Find the right builder, and after that, you have good to go.
Right. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but really it takes having the right people, right?
Exactly.
And one of the things I will advise you is find the right people. Just do it. I've literally gone through everything I could have gone through here. And when I do invest again here in Bali, that's going to be my #1 thing because the headaches it saves from finding the right legal team to finding the right, you know, consulting team as well that can walk you through the process, do all the necessary checks, that have a good understanding of the culture and the language and can check those contracts. Again, you know, we talked earlier about making sure that you have the right contract to protect you if something happens. You know, one of the things that I would have liked to have even in my contract is if the builder doesn't finish the property at a specific time, then they're actually meant to pay you for every day that the property is not done. So that was one of the things that I didn't even have in my contract, you know, that I wish I did. So certain things like that, you have to have the right team to help you protect your investment, right? So if you're gonna put down a lot of money, make sure that that's protected, right? And so yeah, we've talked about all of this different stuff. I have another question for you. What's a good budget?
All right, okay. It depends, right? So if you want, it depends of the quality of the villa that you would like to have, right? But I will say, as such, if you look at area like Canggu, let's take Canggu. If you would like a 2 bedrooms villas, it's something anywhere between 200 to 250,000 USD for a 2 bedroom villa.
Okay.
A correct 2 bedroom villas. You can always go higher, right? If you improve the quality of the material, something like this. But I would say 200 to 250 for 2 bedrooms. If you move for 4 bedroom villas, which is something which is demanded in the market, it's something between 300 to 450,000 USD.
Okay,
This
got
is
it.
a good budget for
bedroom.
well-built villas.
Right. And so that's more on like the high end if you're really thinking about everything included, right? So that would include the land, the building, the furniture. Is that correct or no?
Yeah, exactly. Also
Okay,
the
got it.
furniture. Absolutely everything.
Got it. So tell me a little bit about how do payments work? How does mortgage or financing, can I get a loan if I'm a foreigner? Tell me about that.
Okay. So usually you will not get a loan to invest in Bali, right? Because the bank in Indonesia will not lend you money, of course, because you are not one of the citizens. So if you leave the country, and of course they cannot get back their money.
Right.
And the foreign bank will also not give you the loan. I do not say it is not possible. I said usually they will not do that. It depends on the situation. Because if you make a default, you default on your loan, they cannot actually take your property in Bali. So most of the investors in Bali, what they do is they pay cash
Right.
upfront to have their villa in Bali.
Right, right. So again, and you know, I said this in my previous video, it's super important if you're investing here in Bali, have that money up front, have it in a separate account because there's little to no financing options available as a foreigner. And so you're going to be putting that money down as cash. But of course, if you're building, you do have time to spread out your payments. So let's say you're building in a year, then you can obviously pay in installments based on the progress of the build, correct?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is going to be my last question. Obviously, I don't want to make the video too long. And my last question for you is it possible to get a good return on your investment as a foreigner who comes and decides to invest here in Bali?
And the answer is definitely yes. Definitely yes. If you make sure that all the steps are really mastered and you have actually some people that can accompany you to invest in Bali, absolutely no problem. And that is why actually in Bali every year you have this flow in investors keep coming here because it's a pretty good option compared to the Western countries.
Right.
You need to diversify your portfolio, and Bali is pretty well located for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of different countries and different types of people invest here. A lot of people invest in hotels. A lot of people invest in villas. So it really just depends. But there's great opportunities for return on investment. And one thing about Bali is you have an influx of tourists coming in. So there's always a high demand for villas. And we now are seeing a shift in the way that people are renting villas here. So you're getting a lot more longer term rentals as well, which is also really great as well.